The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find. The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style.
Riley Pendleton. Welcome to the Big H Podcast. Today's podcast is titled Reaching Out to Riley. Riley, tell our viewers where you're coming from.
Right now I am in Oxford, which is just a little bit outside of London.
Now, what made you decide to study abroad?
This was the summer that I was going to do it. Other summers have to worry about internships. So if I really wanted to study abroad, which my parents kind of preached to me that I should really do, then this was the summer to do it. So just decided to.
Tell our viewers where you're going to college.
I go to college at St. Bonaventure University.
And you originally come from Hilton High School. Mom, Melissa Pendleton, and your dad's Rick Jordan. Talk a little bit about your mom and dad. And, well, I know you don't have any siblings, so talk a little bit about mom and dad and what's up with them.
Yeah, I mean, they're great. They're the entire reason I'm on this trip. Specifically my dad. I came back for winter break. I believe it was my sophomore year. Came back from winter break, and we're all sat down at the dinner table, and my dad looks at me and goes, "Hey, you're going to join this Zoom. It's an informational meeting about this Oxford trip." And at first I didn't really want to, just because didn't travel much as a kid, so it was very new to me. But they preached that it's a good idea and something that I should at least join and just see. And I did, and here I am.
What does your father do for an occupation, and your mom?
So my dad works in the radio industry. He's had a lot of different jobs. Believe he got a new job while I was gone, so I don't know his exact title, but he's got his hand in a lot of different pots in that industry. And my mom works in the court system.
I learned to get to know your father through villageradio.net. He also runs an internet radio company, correct?
He does.
Do you have any desire to follow in his footsteps?
After growing up and seeing him, do what he does, probably not. He's also told me to, stay away in a sense. So, I enjoy that kind of work he does. So maybe just take that in a slightly different direction.
Sure. And what direction is that? What major are you pursuing at Bonaventure?
I'm a sports media major. Sports has always been a really big part of my life. And if I was able to incorporate that in my work somehow, I feel like that just make my day-to-day really enjoyable.
What would be your all-time best job once you get out of college and you're ready to get in the job market?
I've come to learn that I really like writing. So if I could do something along the lines of like being a sports writer, like write articles after games about the game, I just get to watch and write what happened, write opinions. I feel like that'd be really cool. I already feel pretty knowledgeable in the sport world. So
What are you on any school newspapers or any journalism exercises there at Bonaventure?
I'm not at the moment, but I will be next year. I had just changed my major um, in my sophomore year, so I only had about one full semester in that major.
Hmm.
So next year's the year I'm gonna really get into all the extracurriculars the school has to offer.
And any particular clubs or those extracurriculars that you got in mind?
Yeah, so there is this it's a like the school radio station called The Buzz,
Hmm.
and got a couple of buddies that do it. It's really whatever you make of it. You can go in and you can talk about sports, or you can really talk about whatever you like. And they also have this kind of like a program where you can create your own podcast, kind of like what you're doing.
Hmm.
So me and one of my buddies who shares the same major as me, we're looking to start up our own podcast next semester.
Great. You got a title yet for it?
Not yet, but we'll definitely have to figure that out sooner rather than later.
I think it's something you definitely could lean on Dad. He's been very influential with me just doing my little gig here,
Hmm.
and I wouldn't have got started without him. So I would rely on old Dad. In terms of your writing, we've communicated via email a few times, and I have to say your emails are impeccably written,
Thank you.
well structured, and you're very welcome. So it looks like you're entering your junior year there at Bonaventure.
Yep.
So what type of um, when you decided to go to Bonaventure, what went into that decision making?
Um, so I had looked at a couple of colleges, and the two colleges that I was deciding between was Canisius and St. Bonaventure. And coming from Hilton, it's a small town, like
Hmm.
you know everyone, and that's the kind of feel I got when I went to visit Bonaventure. It's a smaller campus, very like a rural area. You know everyone. It's a family in a sense, which is what I was looking for. And yeah, after my visit, I loved it. I'm really glad I went there.
Tell our viewers a little bit about the size of literally how many students attend, the faculty, the staff, and you talked about that small town feel. Talk a little bit about Olean, where it's located.
Uh yeah, so Olean is kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Um
Be honest.
yeah. Uh it's about an hour and a half drive from my house, and on that hour and a half drive, you lose service a couple times.
Hmm.
You see the Amish walking up the road with their horses. Like it's out there, but it's once you get there, it's a really nice little town. Um, College campus is located in the center of it, and everyone there loves Bonaventure. You'll find all the townies watching the games in the bars. Like it's a great, like I said earlier, it's one big family, and that extends past the students and faculty. It extends to the entire town as well. And then
How many? Go ahead.
I'll get to that. Yeah, so students, students, it's about want to say 2,000, something like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Um, I believe the faculty to student ratio is like 1 to 3, which is really good
Hmm.
compared to a lot of the bigger schools you'll see where it's 1 to 20, 1 to 50.
Hmm.
So it's the faculty are a huge part of that school, and they do a really good job.
Aren't there deacons or whatever? Isn't it kind of like a religious type of thing?
Yeah, I've never really gotten into that side
Mm-hmm.
of the Bonaventure community,
Mm-hmm.
but they're there and they're a huge part of the campus as well.
Mm-hmm.
Believe they go by Friars,
Right.
and yeah, they're a huge part of the community. They're even if you're not religious in a sense, they're always looking to lend a helping hand, and they're just always there to talk whenever you would need.
Now the media, the sports media that you're going to go into, talk a little bit about the courses that you're going to take and what you're looking forward to.
Um, so I've taken a couple of the base level courses. So now I finally get to move into some courses where I get to pick what direction I want to go with this. Um, so next semester I'll be taking a new shredding class, which is just that's the one I'm not too excited for. But
Mm-hmm.
outside of that, I get to take a videography class where essentially you get to work with the D1 basketball team and
Mm-hmm.
take pictures and videos for them, and that's a really cool experience. I've had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of friends who have taken that class, and they all say it's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And especially having a couple friends on the D1 team, it'll be cool to interact with them and in their environment rather than
Mm-hmm.
our environment. So those are just a couple of the classes I'm taking. As I kind of progress through at least another semester, I'll be done with all those prerequisites for that major, and I'll be able to go in a lot of different avenues and just see what I like.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about uh okay, I know basketball is one of your favorites. Is that the type of sport that you'd like to cover? And with that end, would you rather do news reporting on the sports or opinion articles?
Um, so obviously basketball is sports near and dear to my heart, but as of as of late, I've become really interested in a lot of other sports.
Mm-hmm.
I've branched off into soccer, even a little NASCAR. So just, having a wide range is something I'm glad I have now. And I feel if in the future my job allows me to work with sports, I'll learn about whatever and write about whatever just because
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to just be basketball. And then remind me what the second part of that question was.
Um, I think it was, would you rather write straight
Oh,
news on sports or opinion or a scattering of both?
hmm um, news is probably the safe option because
Mm-hmm.
when you write opinion-based stuff, there's everyone has different opinions, so
Mm-hmm.
it's an interesting route to go down. But if I definitely think a scatter that would be nice. I feel like I'm knowledgeable enough to have some pretty solid opinions, putting bias aside.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a scatter that would be really cool. Just be able to get to voice my opinion, but also explain like what actually happened in the game.
Now you have an interest in sports and sports writing, sports media. Are there any publications, podcasts, or uh, TV programs that you watch that get your fix on the sport, but also influence your taste and how figuring out how you're going to do your craft?
Yeah. Um, you know, it might be a little basic, but I love the ESPN
Mm-hmm.
programs. You know, inside the NBA with Shaq, Charles Barkley, like that group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just a lot of those different programs. Can't think of them by name,
Mm-hmm.
but just growing up watching them, it's had a big impact on the way I think about sports and the way I choose to talk about them. So definitely, definitely ESPN and the programs they have been a big impact.
There's so many ways now to capture media, get your information. It comes to us at every different direction. Have you found that reading has helped, or is that a way, or do you consume a lot from viewership and listening?
Um, I feel like I consume a lot from viewership and listening. I feel like reading's obviously a great way to expand your horizon in that sense, but it's also more of reading what someone else says. And I feel
Hmm.
like if you can have your own understanding of, what happened in a game, then I feel like you watching that game or you listening to people talk about the game afterwards goes a little deeper than just reading an article someone put out about the game.
You've mentioned Shaq and Barkley and those on-air talents. Do you have any sports writers that you've read in the past, maybe that you really appreciate their style? Even may so their opinions, maybe some that you agree with or those that you disagree with.
Ah, I can't think of anyone off name, like in any specifics, but there have definitely been, just seeing a random ESPN article that pops up. Um, Actually, there have been a good bit of Bonaventure alumni that have gone into the field that I'm looking at.
Hmm.
Adrian Wojnarowski, he went to Bonaventure. Um, there's another guy who I forgot his name, but I just started following him on Instagram, and he puts out a lot of really good content. So yeah, I'd say those are my two right now that I really enjoy listening to and just seeing what they have to say.
I mean, it may have been an unfair question because when I watch ESPN or other sports programs, a lot of their on-air talent are also authors. So you get a lot of what they write on air speaking on
Yeah.
television. Um, Going back to Bonaventure, you said you have a couple friends that are on the men's team. Who
Mhm.
are they, and how has their friendship or their relationship with you enhanced your ability to have connections with the program?
So I have my two friends, they're both walk-ons. One of them walked on freshman year and I've been friends with him since. And then another kid, his name's Jack DeRose, he's an Olean native. He
Mm-hmm.
went to high school there and he was given the opportunity to walk on, and I wasn't I wasn't close with him exactly until this trip because he chose to come on this trip as well.
Mm-hmm.
But those two for sure. Especially the first kid I mentioned. His name's Brock Ostrom. He's from he's from Holly, which really small school, much smaller than Hilton. Um, he we were on the same floor our freshman year, and we have been ever since. Just get to go play basketball, talk, and then when it's time for Bonaventure to play, it's really cool to see him, on the bench and even get a little game time in, especially knowing what he had to do as a walk on and what he had to sacrifice. I'm really thankful to have met both of them.
And I know I watched you in high school play on the boys team at Hilton. Talk a little bit about your club experience there at Bonaventure.
Um, love the club experience here. I gotta say, at least me personally, I didn't have the best high school basketball experience, but this club experience has really helped me break out of my shell in like a basketball sense. Just feeling a lot more confident. There are no coaches, no real like plays. It's just if you can play, roll the ball out and go play. So I feel like that's definitely helped, and yeah, just that sense of confidence. that it's really nice to have. Even if you know you're not going to go anywhere with basketball after this, it's still nice to be able to enjoy it more than you have in the past.
Talk a little bit about the schedule you've played, maybe a couple of guys that you played with, and the extent of your accomplishment, personally wise and team wise.
Um, so yeah, we play a couple different schools are in the area. Whenever we play someone, we play back to backs. So, it eliminates travel. Um, but we play teams like Niagara, Canisius, Syracuse, those type of schools. And last year, our team was very senior heavy, so it didn't leave us much room for playing time as I would have hoped. But going into our last few games, we had an away game at Niagara, which none of our seniors showed up to because they had some class event. So that led for me to get some playing time, and I ended up, I think I had 18 off
Hmm.
6 threes.
Nice.
And we ended up winning one of the 2 games, which was enough to send us to regionals. And then we got to play Penn State, who they're, I think, 4-time regional champ. They've won the past 4 years. Really good team. They have a ton of guys who played D2, D3. I think they had a couple guys who played D1 who just didn't want to continue going down that route, so they just chose the club route. And we lost, but it was still a great experience, and just being able to play like really high level basketball in that setting, it's very, very cool, very enjoyable.
So when you play, do you have a coach? Do you coach yourselves? And does Bonaventure pay for travel, or does that come out of pocket of the players?
So we don't have a coach. Every year we nominate 2 captains. They're typically upperclassmen. And they normally handle the, how practice runs. They'll sub during the games when they can. A lot of it's on us. If one of the upperclassmen sees, someone on the court is that they're tired, or maybe they're not playing the way they could,
Mm-hmm.
then it's very free to put your opinion in and say, hey, like maybe we should get someone else in, give them a breather.
Mm-hmm.
Then as far as travel goes, club basketball at Bonaventure isn't too heavily funded. A lot of the money that the school gets goes to the club hockey team,
Mm-hmm.
because they're in the midst of switching over from club to D1.
Okay.
So a lot of the money goes to them. But we'll get a bus, and like that's really the extent of all we need. There have been a couple times where we've had to drive to games, but outside of that, it's hasn't been too bad. We don't need too much. It's very simple. You don't need much to play basketball. Just buy us a new set of basketballs every season, and that's really all we need.
You mentioned that when you play back to back. So let's say you're playing on the road. This may seem like a dumb question, but I've watched a lot of AAU games where they play 2 or 3 games in a day. Do you play the back to back on the same day, or do you stay overnight and then play a second game the next day?
Yeah, so we'll actually play it same day. As soon as the first game finishes up, we have about 20 minutes just to, relax, sit on the bench, do whatever. Then the next game gets going.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same set of refs. You almost forget that you're playing 2 separate games.
Mm-hmm.
So, as soon as you stop playing, it feels like you get right back into it. But at the same time, that leaves room for a lot of other guys to get playing time, since when you're playing these back-to-backs, you're a lot more likely to get tired quicker.
Mm-hmm.
So that second game is when a lot of the underclassmen really get a chance to show what they can do. which is really nice.
How many guys are on a roster? And in terms of the, do you play two 20-minute halves or is it 4 8-minute quarters?
Yeah, so it's two. Actually, no, it's 4 8-minute quarters. It
Mm-hmm.
actually might be 10-minute quarters now that I'm thinking about it, but I could be
Mm.
wrong on that. And I'd say we have about 15 guys on the roster normally. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like this upcoming year since we're losing about half our team, as a lot of them were seniors. But we'll see about the incoming freshman class, and then got a lot of buddies that didn't play club, but I know could. So just trying to get a lot of those kids to come play and just make our team a little stronger for next season.
So let's say you lost half your roster, so that breaks it down to 8, but you got like 15 or 20 maybe to come out. I don't know. I could be wrong on that. You can correct me. Who makes the decision on who makes the club team?
It's normally the captains.
Okay.
So for this upcoming year, there's a senior and a junior that are the captains. So they'll run tryouts and they get their pick of who they want to keep. Any of the other upperclassmen that are normally on the team that are coming back, they'll get to have somewhat of a say. But the ultimate decision is up to the two captains.
And now going back to Bonaventure, you mentioned there's basketball club and hockey. What other sports do they have for club?
Rugby's huge there. It's not exactly a club, but it's not like a NCAA recognized sport. So they have their full team. It's like a D1 sport.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't have that label. But rugby's huge at Bonaventure. I'd say it's one of the top 3 programs in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So you get people from all walks of life that are just really, really talented at rugby, and they just come from wherever. I've met kids from Africa, kids from parts of Europe, like they're from all over. They just come and they play rugby, and rugby's huge here. Then, as far as other sports go, that couple generic, like you've got the golf team, club soccer. I've my 2 best friends at school I've made through club soccer, just from mutual friends and all that. But those are the main sports, I'd say.
I would think that you'd have a good club rugby team since it doesn't have football, but you're going to have kids that come and they're footballs and players at heart. But
Yeah.
and it's also, I think, just adding my 2 cents, neat meeting people from Africa, Europe, and all that, going to school. How has being on a campus now that you're in college, you break away from the small pond of Hilton, which is pretty much
Mhm.
homogenous. Using a big word, I think that basically, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's it been like at Bonaventure meeting and going to school with people from different countries, celebrating different cultures?
Um, yeah, it's just really cool to see like people who come from different walks of life that I have. Um, we've got a lot of different experiences, but we can all bond over similar things. And being at Bonaventure in that small community, you become close with a lot of people and quickly. And I don't know, it's really cool to meet people that you probably wouldn't meet if if you didn't go to such a small school. If this school had like 25,000 people, probably wouldn't meet a lot of them just
Mm-hmm.
because of the size. But yeah, so I'd say it's just really cool to see people from different walks of life and how we all came together at the same spot.
Has it made you appreciate your own upbringing even more?
Definitely. Hearing some of the stories from these kids that come from maybe not the most fortunate countries, um, definitely makes me feel very grateful for my upbringing, where I grew up, how I grew up. Yeah, definitely.
What was it like transitioning from high school to college? That maybe that breakaway, that first day, night, homesickness, maybe, or just kind of getting into the college scene from high school.
Um, yeah, so I'm like you said earlier, I'm an only child. Didn't travel much as a kid, so I won't say I was sheltered, but I just didn't have those kind of experiences.
Hmm.
And I moving was okay, but after the first couple of days, my original roommate as a freshman decided that he didn't want to go to college anymore, and he dropped out.
Ooh.
So for the first semester of my freshman year, I lived alone, and it's nice having the room to yourself. But at the same time, your roommate is how you make a lot of connections with people, and you push each other to go out and meet new people. And I'll say I struggled a bit that first semester, but once you find your group and just a couple kids that you're close with, that all goes out the window. Really grateful to have met the people that I did, especially at that time, because I was just having kind of a tough time there, but
Mhm.
it definitely subsided.
Well, I appreciate your honesty and your reflection back on that. Were there other students from Hilton that also attended Bonaventure? Did you run into them? Comment on that.
Yeah. So I believe Derek Cavey.
Hmm.
He went to Bonaventure. Um, we were super close growing up. Like, he was one of my best friends. And when we went to college, or when we learned we were going to the same college, we decided that we weren't going to room together. Just so we could meet new people, branch out. We'll still always have that relationship with each other, but we didn't want to just focus in on that our first year. Um, so there were definitely a lot of people from the Hilton community that get carried over to Bonaventure. Both of the Gambado twins, they were seniors my freshman year. They were the two captains for club basketball.
Hmm.
Um, so they were huge in helping that transition. Um, they had an off-campus house where like on the weekends they'd host parties and whatever, and it was always nice to see a familiar face. And just the Hilton community is super tight knit as it is. So it just carries over from one place to another, and that was really helpful.
Any other clubs or activities that you have been involved in at Bonaventure besides the club basketball?
Um, as of at the moment, no. I like I said, I was a business major, and for a while I didn't know what I wanted to do with that. So after I I didn't enjoy any of the clubs in the business in
Department.
that business major. So once I changed majors halfway through last semester, I saw all these new clubs, and it was kind of difficult to join mid semester
Hmm.
when I had just started um, in that new like school. But this upcoming year, I'm definitely looking to get more involved in uh, different clubs, and you know just kind of immerse myself in this new major and this new communication school.
So, with the switch of majors from business to the media, are you still going to be on schedule to graduate in 4 years, or do you anticipate taking some courses maybe in the summer, having to go a little bit extra?
Yeah, so I should graduate on time. Um, I kind of had a feeling that I wanted to switch majors a little earlier on. I just never pulled the trigger. but I've taken summer classes both summers so far. I took two my freshman year, and I'm taking two right now. And yeah, I should graduate on time, barring any big like mess ups. But obviously, looking to bypass those. So the way I have everything set up, I should be fine to graduate
Good
after
for
4 years.
you. Now, we talked a little bit about mom and dad. Let's go back to your early education, that elementary education. Mrs. High says if you don't mention your first grade teacher, she said I can't post your podcast. So talk about that kindergarten through, let's say sixth grade, where you went to school. Some of your teachers, maybe some influential people, or some moments that may be good moments or challenging.
Yeah. So, I wasn't born in Hilton. I was born
Where
in
were you
Maine.
born?
I was born in Maine.
Okay.
So moved around a little bit when I was younger, and I finally came to Hilton. But my at least I or my parents didn't have a close connection with a lot of the other parents. Um, so it was a new environment. Um, I started off at Village, where I had Mrs. Heiss, all time one of my all time favorite teachers.
Okay.
She's amazing. She still is amazing. Um, and then going into second grade, I transferred to Quest Elementary, and can't say enough good things about that school. Love the teachers there, especially Mrs. Philman and my fifth and sixth grade teacher, Mr. Cruckton. They were both huge influences on me. Um, still, still talk to them every once in a while when I get the chance. But another thing that I loved about Quest was how they mix grades.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be first and second grade together in the same class, third and fourth, and then fifth and sixth. And this led for more open communication with the grade above you. So in my third grade year, I became really close with a fourth grader, and that relationship just went throughout, elementary school, middle school, high school, and I've got an entire group of guys that they're all older than me by a year, but we've been friends for forever. And I don't know, I feel like that goes into becoming, just a slightly more mature person.
Absolutely.
Just being around people that are all older than you, and they've all done what you have, especially as an only child, where I haven't exactly had, I didn't have a older brother to kind of lead you through those things.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to have that relationship with some slightly older guys that you can just learn from them. So definitely grateful for Quest for that, and Village as well.
You're really wise beyond your years. Would you mind name dropping a couple of those guys that you met while you were a third grader and you maintain friendships to this day?
Yeah. So my main friend was his name's Jackson Lemke. Um, we were incredibly close throughout you know throughout my schooling at Hilton. Um, then I ended up becoming friends with just a couple other kids. I got introduced to his like larger friend group going into middle school. So another kid I became really close with, his name was Matt Lifso. We had in our neighborhood, we had I'd say there were about 3 to 4 of us that were all super close. They were all a year older than me, but every day during the summer we're hanging out, playing basketball together, jumping in the pool. So yeah, that was a huge part of my upbringing, and I'm definitely grateful for those guys.
Now, when you mention teachers that they meant a lot and were influential, as a teacher myself, it really means a lot to hear that from former students. Talk a little bit about what made Mrs. Philman so special and Mr. Cruckton.
Yeah, so they're just both really personable teachers. It's one thing to be good at your job and be good at like teaching content to students, but it's another to be able to form a relationship with students that goes on past, just that 1 or 2 years they're in your class.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the main thing that I appreciated about both of them. Um, I was able to just talk with them even after I was outside of their class, just talk about how life's going and, just reminisce on past classes. And I had great relationships with them even when I was in their class. I feel like that's something that stood out to me. Not a lot of students had those kind of relationships. They kind of looked at it as like this is my teacher who just
Mm-hmm.
gives me homework and all that. But when you have that positive relationship with your teacher, it makes coming to class a lot more enjoyable. That's what I definitely appreciated for both of them.
So then you move over to middle school. What was the transition like going from Quest, which was multi-age, a little bit smaller? There's about 400 kids there, and then you're transitioning over into the middle school, much bigger. Schools filtering in from Village and
Yeah.
Northwood. What was that transition like? And maybe talk a little bit about some teachers that helped you along the way.
Um, yeah, it was definitely different. Like you said, Quest being the smallest of the elementary schools, a lot of people that I hadn't met before, but also having played, Hilton Select and having that group of guys that we'd already grown up together and played basketball for the past 3 years together.
Mm-hmm.
I had my group that I went into middle school with, so that was definitely helpful. And there's some great teachers. My personal favorite was Mr. Monfilato. He was a social studies teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, he was awesome. I had him both years, I believe, and he was a big Steelers fan. I'm a big Patriots fan, so we'd always talk about football, put some friendly wagers on games, even though probably wasn't supposed to. But it was, like I said, just having that personal connection with him while I was in the class definitely made me feel more at home, and a school where I didn't know as many people as anyone else from the other elementary schools would. So yeah, definitely Mr. Monfiletto was a great guy. Great, huge impact he had on
He'll
me.
he'll love to hear that. He'll love to hear that. Middle school's it's a tough year. I mean, growing up wise, the adolescent stage, just things are going haywire in your brain and your body. Talk a little bit about some of your favorite sports teams. Maybe I think you just mentioned the Patriots. Talk about your basketball, whether it's pro teams or NCAA teams.
Yeah, so my dad, Boston guy, kind of instilled that to me at a young age. So
Mm-hmm.
Celtics, Patriots, Red Sox, all of them. I'm a huge Boston fan. Finally got Banner 18 this year. That was really fun to watch. Um, and then as far as NCAA goes, I didn't. My parents don't have that much of a, especially my dad. He's not that big of a fan of college.
Mm-hmm.
But for college basketball, I grew up really enjoying watching Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know, they just had a couple players. I started watching when I was in middle school, and they just had a really exciting team. And I've been a big Jayhawk fan since that. Obviously, Bonnies are one now, but Kansas will always have a special place in my heart.
So you're really happy because Celtics, I believe, they just won the championship.
Yep.
Um, so then, what are before we get to high school? Did you hold any jobs when you were younger? You know, to make some extra money on the side.
Yeah. So as soon as I turned 16, I got a job at McDonald's right down the street from my house. Uh, it is what you make of it. I
Mm-hmm.
just I was doing it to get some money in my pocket. Obviously, it's not very glamorous or just kind of gross in general, but
Mm-hmm.
I just do what you have to do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
then I did some side stuff in my more recent years. Last summer, I worked for the Village of Hilton, their DPW. So going back to the not very glamorous jobs, I was a garbage man for a bit. Um, just doing maintenance within the town. Definitely made me appreciate that McDonald's job.
Mm-hmm.
It's very it's not very difficult in the grand scheme of things compared to some of the guys or some of the things the guys at the DPW do for work. And then most recently this summer, I worked at Green Acres, which my really good friend's Ben Hassett. His family owns Green Acres, and I was looking to get a job that wasn't McDonald's for the summer up until I left, and I knew that was going to be really difficult just because no one really wants to take on someone that's only going to be there for a month and a half. But they were great. They gave me a job. I worked about 40 hours a week up until I left, and super grateful for them. That's definitely been my favorite job up until now. Just being able to work with one of your best friends every day was really enjoyable.
Talk a little bit in general about what your life was like at Hilton High School for those 4 years.
Um, it was great. I mean, was always on the basketball team. Um, that was a huge part of my Hilton experience. Um, just being able to make new friends, become part of new friend groups, and just spend time with people that you grew up with. That was huge for me, and it's exactly what I was able to do. Was able to do pretty well in school, so that was never really a huge concern of mine. Um, yeah, I just really, really enjoyed Hilton. Great school, great experience.
Uh,
Yeah.
any teachers that stuck out to you? You had Mr. Monfilato in middle, Mrs. Philman, and Mr. Cruckton in elementary. Anybody in high school?
Um, I'll say not as much so. I definitely had some good teachers. Um, Mr. Ellicott, he's a great teacher. He was one of my favorites for sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's obviously a little different in high school. You're not spending as much time with kids because it's like, you got, what is it, 50 minutes of class, less
Mm-hmm.
than that maybe, and then you're on to a new class. So it's tougher to build those personal relationships. Um, Mr. Foreman, he's another one. Really, really like him. Um, but yeah, just it's definitely the teachers that I had for multiple years in high school. Definitely closer with them. But overall, it's a lot harder to have that relationship with your students in high school. I feel like because you don't see them as much.
Mm-hmm.
So when a teacher is able to have that relationship, I feel like it means a lot because they have so many students, and the fact that they're choosing to put that time in with you, it shows a lot about character, and I really appreciated that.
So you got some seniors that are heading off to college this year. Any one piece of advice you'd give them?
Um, yeah, so just my one of the professors on this trip, he gave us a little quote. super knowledgeable guy. Really enjoyed talking to him. But he gave us this quote that just says, "Look up." Sounds a little corny, but I mean, if you really take the time to like look up, realize where you are, and immerse yourself into things, I think it makes the transition a lot easier. Also, like, I know I had this issue at first. Don't, um, like, obviously understand that things are going to get better. If you're kind of struggling at the beginning of your freshman year, don't, don't act rash and, oh, like, this isn't for me, any of that. Like, things get better quickly. Um, all you have to do is just find your group, which everyone does, and then you'll love college.
Very, very wise words there. Okay, we're going to wrap up a little bit here now. These are some favorites. I just want to get your opinion. You got a favorite food?
Um, yeah, I do.
Or is it mom's cooking?
Yeah, it's a dish my mom makes. I've got it on the tip of my tongue. Um, it's a shrimp and pasta dish. I
Okay.
just can't think of it at the moment, but
All right.
great.
That's good enough.
Yeah.
Favorite book you've read?
Um, I really liked. I haven't read for pleasure in a while, I will say. But I'd say the Harry Potter series.
Mhm.
I'm a huge Harry Potter nerd. Watched all the movies. We
Mhm.
actually just went on just yesterday, we went on a trip to the Harry Potter, like, studio in London, where we got to see, like, all the props and, all the sets they used. So yeah, definitely the Harry Potter books.
Yeah, I had this earlier in my notes. Talk a little bit about the sightseeing that you've been able to do while you've been over abroad.
Oh, it's incredible. I've said this earlier, but I didn't get the chance to travel much as a kid. So just being able to travel to these different places and see these huge landmarks, it's amazing. We just took a trip. We had an away weekend. It's about 4 days long, where you can go anywhere. So me and a group of 7 other people, we all flew to Palma de Mallorca, which is it's a small island in Spain, and got an Airbnb, stayed there for a couple days, and we were just able to just see the island, beautiful beaches, some really cool castles. Yeah, just being able to go and sightsee somewhere that isn't America's, it's a really cool experience.
Did you see Stonehenge?
We did.
Mm.
Did go to
Well,
Stonehenge.
was that impressive?
Yeah, Stonehenge was great. And then that same day we went to the city of Bath, and we were able to walk around, sightsee. Um, we've had a lot of different chances to go and, like, just go and sightsee. I'd definitely say that Stonehenge and Bath it was one of the coolest places we've been, just because Stonehenge is such a huge, like, historical
Mm-hmm.
um thing, and it was just cool to be there and to actually say that I saw it.
So, with this trip, has it given you the desire to do more traveling in the future?
Yeah, it's definitely opened, like, my mind on it. I was
If
kind of
if so, like what other locations would you want to explore?
um I definitely love to try to go to some other places in Europe. Heard Croatia's beautiful. Um, but yeah, like I said, it's I probably wouldn't go for this length of time. I think 6 weeks is takes a toll.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, I have nothing to complain about. It's been a great experience, and yeah, it's definitely opened my mind up about traveling more in the future, which is something I would definitely like to do.
What have you missed most about the United States since you've been over there?
Oh, there are a good bit of them. AC, that's a huge one. My room is so hot. Um, I'd say ice and water. That's been a big one too. And selfishly, I really miss playing basketball a lot,
hmm
which they just don't do here.
hmm
Huge soccer scene here, and
hmm
which understandable. It's a really enjoyable sport. I've gotten into it even more while I've been here. But yeah, definitely those three things are what I'm really excited to get back to when I get home.
It's interesting. I was watching a podcast the other day, and it was a CIA agent, and he was talking. They were saying, "How do you recognize an American abroad?" And he goes, "Simplest things is they like ice in their water, and if you see that, they're an American." So it's funny
Yeah.
that you mentioned that. Favorite movie?
Um, always was a big Sandlot guy.
Mm-hmm.
You loved watching that movie growing up with my mom. Um, but also the Harry Potter series. Um, yeah, I don't know if anything's gonna beat that for me.
Do
Love
you have?
those movies.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you have a favorite athlete? Favorite Celtic of all time?
Um, I really liked Rajon Rondo on the Celtics. He was definitely one of my favorite players. Obviously Larry Bird, all time great. But my personal favorite was either Rajon Rondo or Isaiah Thomas.
LeBron or Michael Jordan? Who's the GOAT?
So growing up, I was always a huge LeBron hater because of the torment he put me through as a
Right,
Celtics fan.
right.
But seeing his longevity now, and especially like what he's doing with his Team USA team when he's 40, I don't think there's any way I can say anyone but LeBron. He's got to be my goat.
Okay. Have you been watching the Olympics much over there? And if so, what's been intriguing to you outside of LeBron carrying his team at that age?
Um, yeah, I've definitely been able to watch the Olympics. I was able to go to a game. Um, it was one of their showcase games up in London. It was the one where they played South Sudan and they won 101-100.
Okay.
So that was an awesome game to be at. But I don't know. I guess what surprised me is just the you see like the limited role a lot of these players are taking, and it's really showing like the NBA hierarchy. Like Tatum just won a ring, but he's not really doing anything
hmm
because you have your LeBron, Curry, and Kevin Durant, and then everyone else below them is essentially a role player.
hmm
These are all guys that are the number one option on their team, like MVP candidates, championship winners. Like, I don't know. It's just really cool to see how the team operates and how they play together.
Sounds like a pretty good basis for an article you can write.
Yep.
Favorite app? Is that a good question? I don't know. Do you guys have apps on your phones that you go into a lot?
Yeah, I'd say, I don't know. I'll say Instagram.
Okay.
I think it's just good to I get a lot of news from there. So I'll say Instagram.
Is that where a lot of young kids like, I think you call Gen Z, 18 to 25, get your most of your news from apps and
Um,
whatnot?
it's somewhat a lot of like world news I'll get from Instagram just because it's a big platform. A lot of
hmm
people can put things out. So I'd say so.
Favorite TV show or Netflix binge watching show?
Um, right now I'm really enjoying Suits.
Okay.
Been watching that for a little bit while I've been on this trip, so I'll say that right now.
Place to visit
Um,
or where you are right now.
I'd say Cape Cod. Just growing up, my grandma lived there, so we'd visit all the time. And I don't know, just has a little sentimental value for me.
If you had any time for a leisure activity, what would it be? Basketball? What would it do? What would you do?
Um, I'd say basketball, but at the same time, I'd really like to be good at golf because I feel like you can only play basketball for so long, but you can
Mhm.
golf as long as you like.
Mhm.
So if I
Good
could be
point.
good at golf, that'd be great.
What's one word to describe St. Bonaventure? I think I already heard it, but I'm interesting to see if you say the same thing.
I'll say connected. Um, the alumni they're huge at that school. Um, they're always. I was talking to two of the professors that are chaperoning this trip, and they know my major, and they brought up the fact that one of the Abana alumni who works as a WNBA and NASCAR reporter is looking for interns, and he reached out to them to see if they knew anyone. So they put me in contact with him. So I definitely say connected, just from the alumni, the professors, students, everyone's connected in some way.
Good. How about one word to describe Hilton?
Um, I'll say family for that one. It's a small school. Everyone knows each other. Everyone's close. Um, Even the town in general is really small. Like I I know everyone in my neighborhood. So I'll say family. Just real close knit.
What's one person from history you'd like to have dinner with?
Hmm. It's a good question. I feel like it'd be cool to have dinner with Larry Bird. No, just pick his brain a little bit.
Hmm. I like that.
Yeah.
And I kind of have an idea on this one. What's your 5-year plan? Where would you like to see yourself in 5 years?
Um, like to be doing something with sports, hopefully. I just want to be in the position where I can enjoy going to work every day and I don't have to dread it. It's more more enjoyable than, a task kind of thing. So I definitely say that.
Any final thoughts?
Uh no, thank you for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it.
Well, ever since I knew that you were going overseas, I've been talking to your dad. We have breakfast every now and then, and I'm going to get Riley on, and when he's over there, I really appreciate you having you on. I wish you luck the rest of the time there. Um, might run into the Bonaventure. I got a daughter going there in a couple years, so everything that you said so positively about Bonaventure, I'm looking forward to having her experience that as well. I wish you good luck on your podcast career
Thank you.
and your career in school and life beyond. This has been Mike Hayes with Riley Pendleton and reaching out to Riley. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you very, very soon.
The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find